Hello, everybody. Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to Network Food and Talk. I'm Paco again, and for the food talk of today, we have a very special guest directly from Denmark. We have with us Maria Abrahamsen. She's a member of the social enterprise Rub&Stub. Hello, Maria. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
For giving you your time. Thanks a lot. We are very excited to have this little food talk with you. Mm-hmm. And immediately, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself and to explain what is this social enterprise, Rub&Stub.
Mm-hmm. I'll be very happy to. Yes, I am Maria, and I am actually just 50% of this small social enterprise called Rub&Stub that is based out of Copenhagen, Denmark. In Rub&Stub, we work to fight food waste. That is the most simple way I can do it. We do it in many different ways. We actually started back in already 2013, where we opened a restaurant, where every day we made menus based on surplus food, and the restaurant was mainly run by volunteers. And then in 2016, we decided to take the best practices from this restaurant and close the restaurant because we wanted to have a different work life. And then we transformed Rub&Stub into be more of a consultancy, event, food enterprise who still work with the same agenda, which was to fight food waste and inform and educate, but without the daily running of a restaurant. And so we've been doing it like this since 2016 with all sorts of different projects, large scale, small scale. And it's me and my business partner, Irina, who does that on a daily basis.
Incredible. So actually, it's very beautiful. You started with the idea of the restaurant first to fight against the food waste, and then now you turn it into a more complex component system. And how did you start working with food? Why you decided to target exactly the food waste issue?
Me as an individual or Rub&Stub, do you mean?
No, you as you and your partner as the whole enterprise.
I mean, it all started back in 2013 when we were like a group of people, many more people realizing actually that there was an issue, because I want to say the reality in 2013 was much different than it was today, obviously in so many ways, but just the understanding and realization that food waste was an issue. It's something that most people, at least in our part of the world, are very, very aware of, but not so much back then. But we and a larger group of young people realized this and were like, okay, what can we do something about it to at least put it on the agenda or put food waste on the menu, as we would say back then. And that was sort of the cornerstone that started the restaurant Rub&Stub back then. And then we met all sorts of obstacles because we knew the numbers as well as we knew them back then, that there was a lot of food waste, but to actually get the surplus food from the food industry and the primary production was not always so easy, because back then there was a little bit of hesitation in admitting to the food waste. So there was a lot of people who would say, oh, no, we don't have any, we don't have any food waste, but we're like, someone must have food waste because we know of these numbers. So that's just to say that the reality back then was much different than now. People are today much more accepting that this is an issue that we need to deal with. Back then we were still trying to figure out what it was and how big it was and how big of a scale it was. So that was how it all started. Yeah.
No, I understand absolutely that. The sensibilization is growing a lot. Like there is more awareness. But till a few years ago was like, I would say, coming from Italy, I would say my personal experience, to have food to waste was also kind of a value. It's really old background mentality, but we have so much that we can also throw it away somehow. Coming also from the idea of when there was a lot of poverty, where there was not actually a lot of food accessible, so there was this opposite reaction. But luckily, it's increasing a lot.
the awareness is increasing, unfortunately, to some extent, and some places the food waste is also still increasing. But maybe we'll see a difference now where inflation is hitting us hard and food prices are going up. So people are more careful with how they spend, and they might look at food as a resource other than just food. But that's for the future to tell us. But that's the experience that we're having right now. Mm-hmm. We know, like historically, and also just from how the world is, that the wealthier the society you're in, the more food waste you have.
Exactly.
And you don't look at food as something maybe of high value or something that has a monetary value to you.
No, exactly. And it's very important, I also think, to work towards the education and not just a reaction of an emergency, no? Because, there is a price rising, so there is an emergency situation, so we are more careful. But we should aim for the education towards the future. Like, even in good condition, we need to be careful, because it's a planet issue, is a bigger issue than just saving money, no?
Yeah.
So
it's it takes a lot of efforts, both like to the individual and to the society and everything, to change habits. Sometimes you have to do it right here, right now, because there's a crisis. But when it's changing a habit because you want to, because you think it's better, that takes a lot more effort.
Yeah, exactly. I understand perfectly. And also I wanted to ask, because I checked on your website, which is really interesting, actually. Mm-hmm. And I saw you do a lot of activities between workshops. You also do talks, lectures, events. And so how did you come up with this concept? How did you put the ideas together, no? In building
it slowly developed with these things. It's not like one day when we decided to close the restaurant, like, we'll just do this large umbrella of activities. It was like, this is interesting. And then we do this. And then we experienced that, people are actually also interested in getting these kind of activities or those kind of activities. So it's like, it's a slow development when it's just like when you run an enterprise, then you realize down the line what works and what doesn't work. And then, of course, also because it's a very important thing for us, this is also my business partners and my workplace. So it's also a lot about us as individuals thriving. So we also need to make activities that make sense to us and our life and our work-life balance. So it's a combination of what makes sense in the topic that we're working with and what makes sense to us as individuals. And they are equally important.
Okay. And for example, I was very interested again to your workshops. Like, what are more or less the audience, or normally what kind of realities you work on? Because I read something, but I would like to know more from you, because I found that I also would like to know how does it work, a food waste workshop.
And that's a very good question. Because the answer is also plentiful. We always knew ever since we closed the restaurant that we wanted to work with education, because that's the next step. We realized that there is food waste. How do we get rid of it? Or how do we minimize it or reduce it? Well, education is key. And then we're like, who do we need to educate? Well, everyone, basically, because there's food waste everywhere. And they were like, again, how can we support this issue, and how can we provide education? So want to say that we have worked with almost anyone or everyone in our society, anything from large enterprises, in their sustainability departments who wanted to put a focus on this within their company, to fourth graders, I think, in Danish primary schools, and then anything in between. And then we also take pride in, because our workshops does have a large or different target group, then we also customize our workshops, because obviously it's very different when we make like a team building / corporate type workshop versus an educational workshop at a more like primary school level. So obviously it's very different things that you touch upon. No, it's not different things that you touch upon, but the methods that you touch upon them are obviously different. We really do like within Rub&Stub to work with primary schools and high school, and then maybe a few years later, students, because we feel that this is a generation that is very, very interested in the climate challenges that we as a world are facing. And it is also the future generation of consumers, so they can make a huge difference. So it makes great sense for us to work with this generation, versus when we go beyond the age of 50 to 60 years old, where we meet a lot more obstacle and a lot more like, nah, we don't have food waste, now we don't want to change our consumer patterns. Of course, it would make sense to make a difference here, but we feel like it has a larger impact when we work with a younger generation.
Exactly. You mentioned something very interesting also to me. I would also like to ask you what you see as impact, especially now working with younger generation. So, and also, how does this also shape more or less your idea towards the future? Because again, exactly what we were saying before is like the education is the key, no? And so, how you see for the future? How is the impact of your workshops and your activities in general?
Well, I feel that it's being very welcomed by when we talk about this younger generation. We've been doing it a lot with people age 18 to 22. So let's just talk about that age group for now, just to simplify it a little bit. I feel that we have experienced, that this is very, very welcome, because we are meeting a concerned generation. A generation that is eager to make a difference, that are looking for empowerment to make a difference in their life and also in their parents' life. I also feel that when we come in and do workshops with specific focus on food waste, that sometimes we experience that they feel that it's not ambitious enough. Because when we come in talking about food waste, we should also talk about veganism or animal welfare or organic foods. And we, of course, include a lot of these things when we work with food, but our main focus is food waste. It doesn't mean that we don't support all the other sustainability steps that we need to take. But we come in talking about food waste. And I remember a few times when we have worked with surplus food that included, and it was just dairy, it wasn't meat, that there were some of the kids that were very, very disappointed and frustrated that the workshop also wasn't vegan, because that has to be the future. Okay. So what we experience when we work with this generation is a great dedication to be able to make a difference, and a great eagerness to want to be helped to make a difference.
Absolutely. And I also see the point of young people making a connection between, again, for example, veganism and combating food waste. But if I understood, you work in a more practical way. Like, we literally talk about don't throw away food. Like, I don't know how to say. Exactly.
Yeah, it's very hands-on. I mean, you can talk about it like
hands-on, exactly.
Very like umbrella, like and but it is very hands-on when we talk about food waste, especially when we talk to the consumer, like, how can we improve and why is it important? And then we do workshops where we sometimes work with surplus food, meaning that we source some food that would have been wasted otherwise. But what we actually like more in our food waste workshops is to look at the patterns and ways we live our lives in our own kitchens. What happens at home? And how can we make a difference? And more importantly, how can we find it important to make a difference? Because a lot of people need to find that realization that it makes a difference even when you as an individual do something.
So it goes to touch many aspects of the individual, from the personal money management on how many things to buy, or how to cook, or how to consume everything, how to store food. I think it goes to touch so many elements, no?
Yeah, 100%. But it's also about, also finding it important when the sensation of food waste has passed. Because we oftentimes get these questions like, oh, I don't know what to do with my 3 leftover carrots or whatever. but I'm sure they do because they bought carrots because they needed the other 20 carrots in the bag. So it's not that they don't know what to do with carrots. It's just because all of a sudden it gets a little bit boring or a little bit annoying or a little bit blah. Mm-hmm. So we need to do something about the motivation and the interest, even when it becomes a little bit boring and blah, and you just want to order a pizza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get the point. To teach also new habits. No, exactly. As you were saying at the beginning, is to learn new habits.
Yeah, and to prioritize that this is always important, and it's always important. Also important if it's just 2 carrots. And I think that's one of the key things, because a lot of people think like, we don't really have that much food wasted. Yeah, it's a carrot here or there, or I scraped something off of my plate. But within a year or a week or a month, it accumulates to a lot. But also to realize that it makes a difference what you as an individual do. But it does seem like very little to a lot of people, but it does make a difference. And that's also where we need to get to that realization, especially when we talk consumer level.
So I will say it's also an education toward the responsibilities, no?
Yes,
it's exactly. Like it's me. It's not somebody else who has to take care. It's me. I need to act and do.
Exactly. And we know now with the recent numbers coming out on food waste that it is a lot more on consumer level than we thought initially. So we do have a huge responsibility as private household and as consumers. We can't just point fingers and say that it's the industry or the food service or the primary production. It's everywhere, but we, especially in the household and at the private consumers, it makes a huge difference.
And do you also work, for example, with restaurants or in general activities that produce or store
with,
food?
Like with like food service industry. Mm-hmm. So right now we are working more and more with I don't know, like cantinas, like
sure.
We call that cantinas. So
in Germany it's clear. Then like cantina, I don't know, small restaurants. I don't
know. Yeah, but like restaurants at offices, basically.
Yes.
Like that makes lunch for the big offices around.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually not sure what it's called. Anyway, so it's not like restaurants out in the town, but cantinas that are working within a corporation or an institution of some sort, or an organization, who makes like large amount of food on a daily basis for lunch usually. And with we have programs now that where we help these cantinas focus on reducing their food waste through education. Because we experienced that a lot of actors in the food service, they're really good at measuring, at least in Denmark now, like how much food waste they have, or plate waste or production waste. And that's, of course, a huge step to know that, but it just doesn't stop there. Knowing it, you also need to educate yourself and again find the motivation and inspiration why it's important to do something about those numbers. So we provide programs to train and educate and very much also motivate kitchen staff in these cantinas to reduce food waste and also focus on other sustainability aspects of food production.
Okay, wow, it's really exciting to hear about your work, because it's absolutely necessary. And I can just think about the past. I don't know, let's say like that, because again, we said there's more awareness and sensitivity, but before, which I've seen a lot of things like everybody, so it will be very important to have a massive level of education in this way, and very effective. And actually, that's also I wanted to ask: how do you actually reach the people somehow? No, because beside the physical act of the workshop or the educational moment with the cooperation and everything, but how you spread your work, your idea, your goals?
Well, by doing them. basically. Of course, we do a lot of networking and saying yes to things like this. And whenever there's any platform that wants to talk to us or hear about us, we for the most part try and say yes. Of course, we also have a presence on social media and a website and whatnot, but we're not workfluencers. We don't spread a lot of information there. We sometimes update on our endeavors, but we experience that the best way for us to get out there is by being out there and being very welcoming and open-armed whenever we're out and talk to people and spread the word as best possible. And that's, of course, a nice way of doing it. It's not always easy because it doesn't mean that people come knocking on your door the next day just because you went to a networking event. But we experience that this is the best way for us to get the message out of what we're doing. Also because we're not like a one service enterprise. So because we customize everything, we do so many project-based activities. So it's not just, come and buy this one service. We need to sort of like explain it more in detail what it is that we're doing for people to want to be interested in.
Absolutely. Well, we actually hope to also help you to spread your work and communication and everything, because again, now we will share and publish our talk, but soon we will also become a podcast. So there will also be a podcast channel. So also diffusion could be also easier. And also we will promote everything in our social media. So we also we hope to help you in with your project and making exactly and making it more spread. And with this, I would like to close because our time is finished. And thanks a lot again for being here. And I wish you all the best for your project. And I hope to get in contact with you again and to know more again what is happening, what the projects are happening with you and Rub&Stub. Yeah. And for our nice audience, let's meet soon for another food talk. And whatever comments or questions you have for the next one, you can comment below this video, sorry. You can comment below this video, and we will use your questions for our next talks. And thanks, and see you everybody, and bye-bye.